Hey everybody, it's Trapper Dan here. Thanks for stopping by Trapper SNORR. SNORR stands for Sustainable Natural Organic and Renewable Resource. And what we do here at Trapper SNORR is everything we can to support trapping and how trapping benefits the world and the lifestyle of trappers. We also have uh, content creation. So we're live today, but on other episodes, we're live on our trap line and or in fur sheds talking to other trappers like Fursh Education. If you want to know more, you can go to trappersnorr.com and you can learn more. Trappersnorr.com is with two S's. And tonight, we have a special guest here in the studio, and I guess I'm a guest of his studio at the same time. This is Reid Roberts. Welcome, Reid.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, good to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, Reid is someone I watch on YouTube. I saw Reid's, I think I saw you for the first time like 2 years ago. And actually, I forget, but it was someone else that does some far northern trapping that had mentioned your channel. And I forget, it was a guy. Geez, I can't remember. I'll have to find that out later and tell you. But he was driving along and he was like, "Yeah, you guys got to watch this Dead Pine Trappers because he's taking kids out there." And
Um,
awesome.
yeah, Ignomatic Gwitchin, would that be?
Maybe. Does he have a long? He has a long trap line. Like he drives a lot.
Is
I
he on a sled or is he
no on the
driving?
truck.
Oh, okay, no, it wouldn't be him then. Yeah, I'm not sure who that was. Yeah, well, that's cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I caught you, and then I was just like, coming along on your line and watching what you guys do and fascinated. So I reached out to Reid, and happily I saw a message come back saying, "Hey, yeah, I've never done that before, but that would be cool." So we're here tonight to just talk about trapping and meet each other, and hopefully entertain some of the comments that come in. Um, and if anybody out there has any questions for either of us, please go ahead. So how long you been trapping?
Not very long. I would say maybe it was probably 2017-ish when I started. I had a really good friend of mine that was trapping, and I mean I hunted as a kid and I didn't even know what trapping was. Didn't just Nothing registered with me about trapping. So, but
Mhm.
a really good friend of mine that I did a lot of running with, ultra running with, had a trap line, and but we used to go out to his cabin and in the summers and do a little workout there and do some fishing and I went out there one time when he was actually trapping. I took my young kids out there at the time and I just loved it. It was super remote, tiny little cabin, and I'm like, man, this is the lifestyle. It wasn't the trapping, it was just being out there in this location and tiny little cabin. And I'm like, man, I'd love to have a recreational cabin like just like this. And he's like, dude, just buy a trap line. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, buy a trap line, and then you can do a bunch of this stuff. And so that just sort of piqued my interest, and I started looking around and because here in Canada, you have to buy a registered trap line. So once you buy a
Yeah,
registered,
that's not a concept around here. Like we
no, I
just
know
get
that.
permission and
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So
literally the Wild West down there where you just
yeah,
trap. From what I understand, you just trap wherever you want to trap, and you can
yeah.
be in.
Well, you get permission if it's private
Yeah,
property, and if it's
yeah,
public, as long as trapping's allowed there, you follow the
yeah,
laws and you can go trap. But up
yeah.
there,
So
you have to buy. You're not buying property, right? You're
no,
just
no.
buying
So
rights.
yeah, so that's actually where this led to is like because you're not buying the land, you buy the cabin. So I own my cabin on the trap line, but I don't own the ground underneath it. So I always tell people, like, if someone wanted to go camp right beside my cabin, there's nothing I could do about it. It's
Right.
We call it, well, it's public land up here. or crown land. So anybody can access it. So, but I'm the only one that can trap fur. Indigenous communities could trap in that area for ceremonial purposes, but they couldn't be trapping my trap line for financial reasons.
Gotcha.
Right, unless they have, again, they would have to have rights to the trap line. So yeah, so that's it. That's how it works up here. So I've got over 700 square kilometers. I can't remember. I did the math. 200 and some odd square miles. It's massive.
Wow,
And
that's incredible.
I'm the only one that can trap it. So yeah, it's that's kind of how I got into it. Wanting a remote cabin, but now it's the trapping that I'm more passionate about. So
Huh. Well, you and I are definitely a lot more of the same than I thought. I also started in 2017. But also when I was, I think 8 years old, I just remember as far back as I can, my parents said to me, "What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I just want to live in a cabin on a mountain in the woods."
yeah, exactly.
It's always been my dream.
Yeah.
And I get to do that sometimes. I have a cabin on a mountain right near home here that I deer hunt out of. And Jason says he's in Missouri and he put in access for state land and he has thousands of acres. That's cool. Awesome. And Enigmatic says, "Oh, is that who you
Oh,
were
there-
talking about?" Oh, yeah. He
yeah,
says,
yeah. There he is. Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
thanks for stopping in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're the only one that can trap there, but is this just a trail or do you have road access to the whole thing?
I've got it really good actually. I've got a main Forest Service road that goes right down the middle of my trap line. Oops, there we go. Sorry, I'm bumping my table. Yeah, so and you've seen on my last couple videos there, well, even trying to get into the cabin that video came out this morning, but I had to turn around because it's not being plowed. But anyways,
Mm,
there's a road. I don't know what we're 50, 60 kilometers, 30 miles, goes right down the middle of my trap line for the main part. And then I've got, a bunch of side roads that I'll have access to. They become hit and miss because if there's bridges put in by the forestry companies, once they become a liability, they deactivate them. Sometimes they deactivate them just to keep people out.
oh yeah.
Sometimes they'll work
It's
with
not a
me.
guarantee that you're going to have that
No,
road or those
no,
bridges.
there was one area they logged this big clear cut, and it was, great access for me, close to the highway, somewhere where I could get the kids into super easy. Brand new bridge put in. I went in there and set up like half a dozen boxes, and I don't know, I came back like 3 or 4 months later and the bridge was gone. It's like
They took
they
it with them.
just pull it out. And so yeah, there's boxes that I think they got set one season and they haven't been set since. And so the access in the wintertime on a sled or even on a quad, I could go forever. It's almost unlimited, but because I'm trapping with kids,
Yeah.
I need vehicle access. And I
Right.
had one area, again, right off the highway. It was the closest road from town. So it was a spot where I used to take like full class. We take school buses down this road to
Yeah.
a little camp I set up. And 1 kilometer down this road, there was a bridge. And I went out there December 6th, and there was 2 big concrete blocks in front of this bridge. I hadn't set it because I was going to set it a little bit later in the season because Highways they agreed. They knew what I was doing with the kids. So they said, we'll keep it open for you in the winter. We'll plow it for you, which was unheard of. Like that was unbelievable. And so I went out there. So I knew I could kind of rely on that, January, February when there was too much snow. But I went out there December and they put these concrete blocks in front of the bridge and deactivated it. So they left it open where I could get my sled or a quad through there, but I can't get there. So I'm like, that's useless for me. So
Hey, Mark's
Um,
Trapping and Outdoors. Just wanted to say hi to you. Thanks for stopping in. I want to back up a little because I'm like, where does a guy go to buy a trap line? Is there like a listing somewhere? You're like, where
um,
people are selling them, and
yeah,
the
yeah. There's a couple sites. So when I first started looking, I actually bought a trap line about 3.5 hours from my house. So I'm in Prince George, British Columbia, and I found one that had great access, year-round access. Had a beautiful cabin on it, fairly new,
wow, so it
and
comes with the cabin too and everything.
yeah, this one does. I mean, and you can buy small trap lines. Like you can spend anywhere from these are Canadian dollars, so you can do the conversion. But $10,000 Canadian up to 100 to I've seen some $150,000 and
Wow.
more, depending on the size and depending on what facilities or buildings they have on them. So
Right.
the
Holy
first
crap.
trap line I had two cabins. It had a really small line, basic cabin, and then one that literally you could live in if you wanted to. But
Wow.
there was a website that sells guide outfits and fishing camps
Oh yeah.
and sort of more remote. They sort of specialize in that stuff, and I came across it there. But I sold that because a really good friend of mine, good family friend of mine, who was a guide outfitter, I ran into him right after I bought it, and I was all excited. I'm like, "Oh, I just bought this trap line." He's like, "Oh, we're actually thinking of selling ours," and I'm like, "Oh man, I know
Wow.
you're close to town," and
Yeah.
yeah, he's like uh, 30 miles from town, where at the
Yeah.
start of it, and I'm like, "If you sell it, give me first dibs." And so he's an old timer. They only trap it, they get their quota, and then they go to Mexico for the entire winter. So they trap it for like 2 weeks. So,
Wow.
anyways, he sold it to me, and but they still wanted to use the cabin. So he's like, "Look, you can buy it off of us for the next 5 years. I paid 1/5 every year,"
Oh,
and he's
nice.
like, "But trap it all you want." And
Yeah.
but I couldn't use the cabin until a couple years ago. So that's when I had access. So it's now
Yeah.
in my name. But so honestly, it's word of mouth for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, we've got a BC Trappers magazine. There's a classified section in there with a few. Yeah, you can search them, find them on Facebook, but pretty rare, to be honest.
Now, does with that kind of money, you're not thinking of generating enough to pay for the trap line in trapping?
No,
It's more
no,
of
and like I said, well, for me, I mean I'm probably the best paid trapper in all of Canada because
right,
I make a teacher's salary. I
right.
always joke that the fur is a bonus because I make a full salary as a teacher, doing this as a job. Um, but yeah, no, in the long term, maybe you would pay for it, but it's really, like I say, you're not allowed to use it as recreational property. Like I can't just go out there like in BC anyways. But you can use it in the off season if you're doing maintenance, if you're, trail
Yeah.
cutting, which you're doing anyways. So
Yeah.
there's loopholes to say the least, but you can't rent it out. You can't live there permanently. So there are definitely guidelines. You can't
Yeah.
like it, you can only have so many buildings on the area, and you have to get permission. So you can't build guest cabins and stuff like that. So
Amazing.
yeah,
So, it's I don't know what this would be in centigrade, but it's going down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit here right now, and my first shed's getting cold. I got to go throw a log in the stove.
oh yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that. But tell us about you're a PE teacher, and you introduced trapping to your classes, and then your school is like, "Hey, this is cool."
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of a wild story. It all sort of happened by accident. Yeah, I've been a or was a PE teacher. I've been teaching now for about 32 years. And so I was a full-time PE teacher, but we had a few outdoor ed classes, and the outdoor ed teacher had left. And so they wanted me to do an outdoor grade 10 class. And I'm sure, I was into hiking and lots of outdoor stuff, but not so much well, obviously not trapping at all at the time. Just getting started. But I just started the trapping, and I'm like, well, this might be something kind of fun to teach in my outdoor class. But literally, we're talking about one hour a day during the school day that you have kids in a classroom trying to do outdoor education. And so you've got to be pretty creative.
Yeah.
Because you actually can't really get out and do too much unless, you sort of book these trips and take time off. But anyways, so I was bringing in martin boxes, I'm bringing in traps. And then one time we brought in a critter to skin. I mean, that's another interesting story, how that went over. But, and so anyways, I had a student that I just wasn't connecting with. And so, I tried everything, being the hard ass teacher and the discipline, and then trying to be like super soft, and like nothing was working. But I remember on the very first day, because I was so excited about trapping, I just asked, has anyone trapped before? Does anyone know anything? And this kid had put up his hand, but I remembered that. So we were a couple months in. So I went to my administration and I'm like, look, would you give me a release day? So pay for a substitute teacher, because I need a full day. I'll pay for the gas. I'll take this kid out to my trap line. I'll take a couple other kids out, just so I'm not singling this kid out. And, just to see if there's some kind of connection. And my administrator at the time was kind of like, her eyes just sort of got big, like, this is kind of a crazy idea, but at the same time, this is like a fantastic idea. I mean, we live in a northern community. It's a small community. There's, lots of people that are hunting and fishing in our community. So that's the lifestyle that a lot of these kids grow up with and experience. So she said yes. They gave me the money to do it. And ironically, this kid didn't want to go. But my Indigenous ed department, and this kid was an Indigenous student, but I grabbed one other non-Indigenous student and one other Indigenous student, but they're like, you still need to take them out. We'll find another kid. So I did. And again, long story short, it exploded. They're like, that was fantastic. The kids just came back like so excited. I took a bunch of pictures. We were just ripping apart culverts where the beavers had plugged it up. These kids were in water, covered in mud. Just this was the best thing ever. And so they asked me to do it again. And so I got a grant to kind of do it every couple of weeks. And so then one day I was with my administrator, and she was talking about having to suspend a kid, send him home for 5 days. So as a joke, I said, well, instead of sending him home for 5 days, why don't you send him with me on the trap line for 5 days? And she looked at me, she's like, that's a perfect idea. And I'm like, I was kidding, because I'm like, I teach full time. I can't be out on the trap line full time. And she's like, no, you're onto something. Like, we're sending these kids home, and we're not doing them any service. So this could be an avenue to work with some of these kids. And I'm like, hey, if you can pull it off, I'll do it. And so we managed to do it. And that's actually right around COVID, because I started it and then COVID hit. And then, of course, the schools just got shut down. So then whenever we got back into session, we sort of picked it up. And again, it just took off. I had a list of kids that they wanted me to take out. And then I had other schools contacting me. So I went to the district Indigenous ed department, and I just said, why don't you hire me? And then I'll provide the service for the entire district. And they said yes. So then it just turned into a full-time job.
One thing rolled into the other. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's how that all started. And then I knew that it was rich, meaning that to pay a teacher, they want you with 30 people in front of you every single day. That's the bottom line. So I knew if there was ever going to be cutbacks, my position would get cut back. So I always tried to stay one step ahead of them and creating jobs or finding someone that would pay for this.
Right.
And so that's when I approached Takla Nation, First Nation, Indigenous Nation, that is about 5 hours west of our town, but we have a
Right.
huge population that goes to school in Prince George.
Yeah.
They had a youth program going on, so I just said, "Hey, with kids from our district," and I'm like, "Would you be interested in hiring me half time to take these kids out to the trap line?" Yada yada yada. They said yes, and then this year I went over with them to them full time. So I'm currently up in Takla in the community of Takla right now at a boys camp. We're up here for a week, so I'm in a basement of the community hall because I needed cell or internet to get
Yeah.
onto this live stream.
Well, I would say most of us, those who are watching, and definitely for myself, would say you have like the dream job.
I do.
I've been
I
a
do.
I was a scoutmaster for 4 years and a scout leader for 6 years, so I totally get, bringing the kids out into nature. We My troop did a lot of backpacking, and we did the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Trail and everything. And there's nothing like those lessons outdoors. And I've never seen kids more energized than when they're in nature.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what brought me to stop at your channel and watch those kids. And
Well,
sometimes they're real green. You can tell they're like
yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're walking around like, and I see you teaching them things for the first time, making them move the
Okay,
tracks.
I'll get there. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Oh yeah, green is not even. You're not even coming close to us. But some
Yeah.
of these kids
The
are
word.
in the description. But one of the things that we found, again, as a PE teacher, I mean, I coach basketball, I coach volleyball, so especially in the high school, most kids have something. So you have something for the athletes. You got the band kids, you got drama, you got the academics,
Right.
but there's a core of kids that are into the hunting and the fishing and the outdoors that most schools just do not provide any opportunities. And so those were the kids that I had kids waiting for me in the parking lot when I would pull up, and they're like, "Who's going out to the trap line today? Who's going? Can I come out? Can I come out tomorrow?" Like
Yeah.
they finally had something at school that they were
Yeah.
part of. And we kind of joked, we call them the camo kids, because myself included, we all come decked out in camo, and every morning they're in my office, they're looking at the furs, so they had something at school for the first time that they were really excited about. And then they were surrounded by a group of kids that had the same interests. And even when I take out the elementary kids from the other schools, it's the same thing. It's they tell me hunting stories and fishing stories, and so they've been exposed to the outdoors but not
Right.
trapping. And then when they see that, it's just it's like a new world to them that they're so excited about. And then they feel like they belong and they feel important, and
Yeah.
they've got stuff to talk about. So it's been a huge success.
That's awesome. Saying hello to Step Markovic. I'm sorry if I'm messing up the names there. I think these are your subscribers. I'm
I know
not.
I can barely see on my screen. It's
Oh
super
yeah,
small,
sorry.
but I
It's
see
small.
Mountain Man Adventures. Yeah,
Yep.
I follow him, and
Nice.
yeah. So
Well, right
Mark,
now it's what 6 o'clock or something your time, and
yeah.
it's 9 o'clock at night here, and
Well,
anybody who's
I'm gonna interrupt. Can you introduce yourself? Give a little history or where you're from for my viewers.
uh, yeah. So I grew up in Vermont, and actually I have a story I don't talk too much about on my Trapper Snore channel, but I was a famous pastry chef, and I trained in New York City, worked in New York City for 10 years, and trained in France, and worked. around the world in different places, but I was a bit of a jet set pastry chef, looking over restaurants in Chicago and New York, and very sad. it's, I loved what I was doing, but I missed everything I grew up with, and so my wife and I moved to the Hudson Valley, where I was a teacher at the Culinary Institute of America for 6 years, and into that I decided to open my own place. But I never missed my outdoors. I always escaped from New York City to get outside and go hunting. And I grew up with trappers in my little hometown. My friends used to trap before school in the morning, and uh, they bought their basketball shoes with their trap line money and stuff. And I was like, I always thought that was great, but I didn't have the finances, I guess, to be able to trap that young. My parents bought me a rifle when I was 9 years old, but they weren't going to be supplying me with traps. So it was always on my mind. And I joined an outdoor club here in the Hudson Valley. And this old guy stood up and he said, if anybody wants to learn trapping, let me know. And I found out where he lived and drove to his house, and he was shocked. But he became my mentor for, sadly, he's passed away since, but he mentored me for about 5 years. And yeah, it's just been a roll. Now I'm addicted like most of us.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I trap here in the Hudson Valley. I did last year get to go trapping in Wyoming on a ride along with a friend of mine, Chappie. Um, and yeah, I don't propose to be an expert, but I am determined and I work hard. And if anybody here isn't subscribed or have seen the Trapper Snore videos, I invite you to check me out. I try really hard to put out what I think is a good video, and I try to um, capture something special each time. And it seems like those just they come to me on the line. It's the same thing for you. You're out there and things happen, and you're like, I think people would like to experience this, and so I try to capture it. And I was saying earlier, and maybe people weren't here, but I also I do different series called Fur Education, where I get into the fur sheds of trappers, and I think those are like seldom seen places, and it's pretty cool. I've done maybe 5 or 6 of those so far, and you learn a lot from other trappers. And SNORR stands for Sustainable, Natural, Organic, and Renewable Resource. So I'm trying to teach people that fur is a natural and good thing, and that we're taking surplus stock and we're enabling it to be a resource for people that can be used at the highest, most beautiful quality uh, textile that there is. And if you don't want it anymore, it'll be gone in a month if you leave it outside.
yeah.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Sorry, I might have kind of run on with that. Oh, thanks for subscribing. Somebody, enigmatic witching.
Gwitchin, Gwitchin, yeah, he's awesome. You got to check if you haven't followed his channel. Check him out. Yeah,
I
he's
might
up in
be subscribed.
Alaska.
Yeah,
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff on his sled, and like he's really trapping up there.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. His
Yeah, I
videos
spent
are
a
great. He
lot
has
of
some
time.
good hunting videos too.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah,
So, um, you answered so many of my questions that I had here. I was really infatuated with the purchasing of a trap line thing, because that's just not a concept we have here. Do you ever
yeah.
get to go just like on your own? Do you have a swath of time that you can trap on your own, where you're like go real hard and go like get as many marten as I can or whatever?
Nope. And actually, I'm trapping less and less because my kids are getting young. Like the kids I take
Okay.
out are getting younger and younger. And so, yeah, currently now with the Tackle Nation students, they're grade 5 to 7 for the most part. Um, when I was starting, I had a lot of the high school kids, and we actually we would call parents and say, "Look, we're going to be late. We're like we're staying out here and trapping because these kids loved it so much."
Yeah.
And the end of the school day was around 3 p.m. we'd get back at 4 p.m. or something like that, sometimes later. But with the elementary kids, they're generally done around 2:30. And now I'm picking them up from school. I'll have anywhere from 2 to 6 kids, so it could be 2 or 3 stops. We'll get out of town 10 a.m. and I've got to be back in town by 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. and it's a 45-minute drive kind of, and then you got to have a fire and hot dogs, and so you're checking half a dozen to a dozen traps. So I do miss that part where I was, I'd get out there on the weekends, and I'm looking forward to retirement here soon. And my daughter's in grade 12, my son's in grade 10. I coach them in basketball, which also basketball season starts in November and ends in the end of February. So every weekend I'm traveling with them, so I don't get out on the weekends either. So it's literally a Monday to Friday job. But there'll be times where I will, get out more, I think, in the future, which I am looking forward to. I mean, I love going out there with the kids. They're fun, but sometimes I actually over Christmas break, there was a couple videos there where I think I checked my entire line, one long day and just.
I saw you running with Jasper and
Pacer,
running the line. Well, actually, I used that clip in the teaser for the live.
That's
video.
right. That was the video. That's right. So there are the odd times that I can get out there, or if I don't have a kid and I've got to get some stuff or check some stuff, I can spend a bit more time. But I'm really looking forward to getting out there on a sled or a side by side or whatever, quad, and spending time in my cabin, and then actually being like a real trapper.
Nice. So we have Chasing Tails was commenting and thanking you for bringing the kids out, and he's he's actually lives in the town over that I grew up in Vermont. And one thing that you were talking about there made me think about when I was in high school, I was in the forestry program, and so half my day would be on the mountain in Killington, Vermont, and we would manage the forest, fell trees, and we had some heavy equipment, and we had a van. So it was a lot like what you did. Our teacher would just drive us out there into the mountains, and sometimes we'd be in like 2 feet of snow, and it's freezing cold. But we always tried to figure out some way to get the van stuck so that it couldn't get us back to school in time. It never worked. It never worked because he would grab the bulldozer and pull the van out,
Well, I get comments from the kids quite often, like, do we have to go back already? So it's, they love it out there. Yeah, I see Enigmatic Gwitchin. I always pronounce it wrong. Sorry. He just subbed to your channel. That's
thank you.
And there was someone from Serbia that's been following me
wow.
That's super cool. And then East Coast Cabin Fever.
Nova Scotia. East Coast Cabin.
Yeah,
that's
we follow each other and quite often chat and leave comments on each other's channel. So he's a great builder he's building a pretty cool cabin right now on his channel. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know about that one. So talking about us East Coasters, we are on the verge of like 100-year snowstorm here. My town has 11 or 12 inches coming tomorrow, and then another 8 to 12 inches overnight tomorrow, and then another inch or 2 on Monday. So we're looking at a couple feet of snow, which it can happen here in the Hudson Valley, but not that often.
Yeah.
So we are a lot of that's a question for the people watching. If there's anybody on the East here, are you guys pulling your traps? I know I have. Well, tomorrow morning will be my last morning I can check the whole line, and I'm gonna have to trip traps because I'm not gonna be able to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to keep my ones close at home going, so you guys can tell us what you're doing. What do you do? Go ahead.
Well, that's again one of my last videos. A couple videos ago was pulling a section of the line, and which is crazy because I could probably drive it now because we've not had snow. But It was over Christmas break, and I knew I was pushing my limit of when how long I could drive it. So I took a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, his son, who loves hunting and fishing, and took him out over Christmas break, and we pulled a section of the line. But it was actually pretty easy to drive. But I always know, like, Christmas time is sort of like it's hit and miss. If I leave it for another week or two, all of a sudden we get that dump, and then I'm forced to take my sled out there. And again, just trying to find the time to do it. So I pulled it probably a little on the early side because it wasn't being plowed. And then my last video that I just posted this morning about trying to get out to my cabin was 4 days later. And all of a sudden the snow just started coming down. Sleds had gone over the road. So it was like driving through sand and mud, and I ended up turning around because it was just getting a little too sketchy by myself. But it hasn't snowed. Matter of fact, everything's melted since then. So I could probably go out there and it will be gravel in some areas. So it's bizarre. So
looks like most of the people watching here did pull their traps before the storm hit. I know it's hitting already in the south. I know it was snowing in Nashville, Tennessee earlier today. And
now you're not trapping marten, are you? You said mink.
We do have a pine marten season in New York here, but it's also in the region of the Adirondacks and not where I am.
25 minutes.
Yeah, some of I have, like, one of my friends, Trapper Joel, can trap pine marten because he has.
And when does that season end?
You know what? I don't know.
We're end of February up here.
Maybe someone watching can help us out with that, but
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you have any bag limits or anything, or no bag limit?
No. And prime, like, marten trapping is really, really good, and it opens in November. November and December is kind of when that's the best time. They're super active. They're moving around. You've got all the juveniles that have been kicked out of their nest and they're traveling. But usually in January things slow right down. Last year was insane. They kept going. Like, I was getting marten after marten after marten right till the last day in February. I was still getting marten, and then I was seeing tracks, in March that usually in January and February it really slows down. And I've heard from some of the old timers, a lot of that is because of the cold snap. You'll get a lot of the young ones that actually don't survive in January, either through starvation or freezing to death.
Right.
And then a lot of people just, they pull early just to keep your breeding stock going for the following season.
Right. Yeah. Now, a lot of guys here, like, we have pockets where we do really well on fisher. I mean, I know a couple trappers who do, they'll get 50 to 100 fisher just north of me. But where I am, where we don't have the fisher here, do you find that fisher and pine marten don't cohabitate?
No. So it's really interesting because right in my not BC, you've got all the different sort of sub-regions, like the hunting, what do they call them? MUs. Anyways, yeah. So in our region where I'm located, we're not allowed to keep fisher. Now there's other areas in BC you can keep fisher. They blue listed them in our region. I even had I was working with an ecologist that doing a fisher study. I've got so many fisher on my line. It's crazy.
You have to use exclusion. You have to.
Yeah. So they've introduced the exclusion boxes, and it's all voluntary. Because you can't keep a fisher out of a lynx cubby or a wolverine cubby, a 330. They're going to go in there, but we actually were getting more of them in our marten boxes.
Right.
And so the fisher exclusion box will keep them out. Now, I haven't caught any fisher this season, mind you. I don't have a whole lot of boxes out, but if I don't know if I've seen a martin maybe once or twice on my line, like alive running around. I've seen Fisher all the time.
Mm,
On my game cams, I'll have Fisher quite often before I see a martin on my game cams.
wow.
Same areas, all the areas where they told me are prime
Yeah.
Fisher habitat, and areas that aren't, I get them all over the place.
So they're living together there then.
Oh, for 100%, they're living together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think our Fisher population is super healthy. It's one of the it's like the grizzly bear hunt. Once they once they
Yeah.
stop it, you're not getting it back. So we've
Yeah.
been fighting. The BC Trappers Association has been fighting hard to try and get the
Yeah.
Fisher um,
Yeah.
trapping
It's like
back in our
lynx in
region.
Maine. In Maine, they have so many lynx, and we can't trap lynx in Maine.
Yeah,
So they have to use all these exclusions that I don't know that much about it, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's time, to open it again. It's
yeah,
only them out. Chasing Tails Adventures there. Yeah, there's no martin season in Vermont, but they're reintroducing them. That's cool. The I heard a little trick up in the Adirondacks to trap martin near the lean-tos of the hiking trails.
oh yeah,
Because the
yeah,
hikers feed the marten, so they get
yeah,
used to being around the lean-tos and
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, I could probably trap 100 or 200 martin in a season if I trapped, if I went heavy. And I mean, I've
Yeah,
got such a big area that I can trap, but there's areas that I just don't get to, especially in the higher grounds up in, they're not big mountains, but there's so many.
now when the kids get they're skinning, are they putting up the fur too? Is like a kid able to go through the whole process of catching something, skinning it, and putting it up?
Yeah, I mostly do that with beavers. Like we go into the time I
Oh,
did it. It was
froze up a little.
yeah, a little froze there. Are we good?
You're back now. Yeah, actually, PA Trapper Steve had the same question. Do you teach the kids fur handling?
Yeah. Yeah, so we, matter of fact, up here with my tackle students, we just skinned a beaver yesterday. But I'll take a beaver into an elementary class, and like again, there's now you've got kids that are not, they're not even wanting to go out to the trap line, but a lot of them are like, this is disgusting, that's terrible, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And 30 minutes later they've got blue gloves and a knife in their hand, and they're skinning away because they're like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done.
Yeah,
I've taken beavers into a
they got
science class.
awakened.
Yeah, yeah, they just, once they start doing it, they realize, it's not as bad as they think. A lot of kids think you're gutting it, which you're not.
Right.
But we have taken beavers into science classes and did them, and you blow up the lungs. The science teacher pulls all the organs out, and the kids just think that's fantastic because
Yeah.
it's not this
Eats a
formaldehyde.
bullfrog.
Yeah, or the fetal pigs and the eyeballs and that they do that. So yeah, we do a lot of that in the schools. And then again, beavers are so easy to skin, and you really can't screw them up. I'll do around the eyes and the ears, but I've had a couple students that became really, really good students that I never thought would be really interested in the skinning part. Matter of fact, I had one girl, she graduated, and I paid her, like I skinned out a coyote and a wolverine, and I wanted to do the paws and the ears and whatnot, and I just didn't have the. I'm like, look, I'll pay you $100 a critter just to, you do the ears and the paws for me. And so she did that. Like she was so meticulous, working
Wow.
with an X-Acto knife.
Natural.
Yeah, and so she just loved it. So I've got a few kids that have got to that point. But every kid does a beaver. I'll give them squirrels.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll give
that's
them
awesome.
weasels because they're not worth anything. I don't care if they butcher them. I'll give, I donate a lot of my fur anyways. I'll donate a lot of it to the Tackling Nation, where they'll send it off.
That's what I was going to ask next. So do they take the furs, or do you sell the fur and give
no, I'll sell the marten because they're, they're easy to skin. They're worth, $50 to $100 Canadian right now. So you make some decent money.
Yeah.
The wolves, I'll quite often I'll donate the wolves, or I'll keep them and I'll do some home tanning with them. Lynx, I've done the same thing. But every beaver, every otter, I'll give to Tackla Nation, and
Yeah.
they'll send it off and get it tanned. And it was funny when I started working for Tackla Nation. When I was talking to my boss, he's like, we go on these road trips across BC, and every nation that we drive through, we present gifts, and we've been presenting them with these beaver hides. And I started to laugh, and I'm like, well, you know where those beaver hides came from? Because I was there's a guide outfitter that runs out of Tackla Nation. He's a German guy that I connected with prior to all this. And he asked me, he's like, can I buy some beaver hides off you? And I'm like, no, but you can have them if you want. And he's helped me out with some stuff. So I'm like, I'll just give you everything, so he was the one sending them off, and then they were the ones that giving them out as gifts. And so it's like it's come full circle where, I was the one providing them with the fur, but now the Tackla kids are actually the ones harvesting the fur on my line.
Yeah.
And then we're up here in Tackla, and we're running a trap line. We set some marten boxes up the other day that, again, whatever we catch up here will stay with the nation, and the kids will skin it.
Well, a lot of these kids are now learning something from you that's part of their own heritage, right?
Yep. And we've got an elder that comes out with us even today, and this will be a video coming up. Today we went to a smaller community from north of Tackla, and you froze up there. Are we back?
Yeah, I feel like I'm back. I'm here.
Yeah. So today he taught us how to set a fishing net under the ice. And
Nice.
So we did that this afternoon. We'll go back up there. It's about an hour drive or so. We'll go back up there tomorrow and pull the net. So yeah, we've got an elder that's teaching the kids that, and I'm learning from it as well. So that's super cool. So it's been great.
That's awesome. And so we talked about this earlier, but you actually, where you are now is actually 5 hours from where you live.
Yeah.
You drive out there, and then you spend a week there, and then
right now we're actually in the community of Tackla. Normally we go to one of the camps, but it was being used right now by a logging company. And so instead of canceling the camp, we just came right to the community, and but we're doing day trips from here and whatnot. So, but yeah, normally we would go. It's kind of, I guess, comparable to like a hunting and fishing camp that we normally would take the kids to. Some of them are very remote. Some of them are fly-in ones. But we'll do that. We'll start doing that during the 4 different seasons. So we'll do this year. We're just doing the winter one, but starting next year, there'll be a fall, a winter, a spring. Then they'll do a summer one. And then we're actually going to introduce 4 other nations as part of the program.
Wow.
4 other nations from British Columbia, that they'll come. Each nation will come to one of the different seasons, and we'll do that over the course of the next 4 years, so that each nation ends up coming to a spring camp, a summer camp, etc.
Yes, this is live. The real Jane. Yeah, this is live, and I don't know how you're ever going to be able to retire.
It's opened up so many doors. I've had lots of ideas. I've had lots of different offers. I get lots of people, just even friends that, I've got one working with Carrier Sakani, and he's working with adults, and he's like, it would be nice if I could hire you to take these adults out, over the course of 5 days. And so, there's lots of these external, opportunities coming in, and, I could start my own business and just, I don't know. It's like I say, come retirement, I've got lots of options.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have been running an education trapping class for 4 years now. And my mission was just to, well, I'm going to go back to when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, I wanted to do it so bad. I almost was like ready to go beg my friends' parents, can you take me out, and I was able to do that hunting sometimes, but not trapping. So my thought is that there's kids around that are like I was. They're like, they maybe they don't even know it, or maybe they are interested, but they don't have access. So I do the class to try to get those kids to sign up, and it's gone very well with kids. And this year I opened it up to adults and kids, and it's a day basically. We had 7 trapping instructors, and we had 42 people come for the day, and they were all so excited and so open to it. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like we're reaching this point where people are understanding that this is a sustainable, natural, organic, and renewable resource, that it's a healthy lifestyle, that it doesn't equal cruelty. Yes, there is some harshness in trapping, and you do have to be like a farmer of the wilderness per se. You are killing things and harvesting. But yeah, this year was like a turning point. It was amazing. We had the DEC come, which is our local environmental conservation for the state, and they gave a little talk, and all the trapping instructors did really well. But what came out of it was this one mom reached back to me, because her son was so interested in it. We had kids fleshing raccoons, and so I just said, hey, when I set up my beaver line in a few weeks, if it ever thaws here, he can come with me and we'll go beaver trapping. And she was like, he'll love that. So, yeah, it's like you said, it's opening doors. It's coming up with ideas. If we share what we do, then, we can keep this tradition alive.
Well, to be honest, the general public is just uneducated when it comes to it, and unless you're directly involved in trapping, like I said, I knew nothing about trapping. I hunted, as a kid, and so it wasn't anything. I wasn't against the killing or harvesting of animals, but it was just had no idea. And whenever I bring students out, and it's nice when parents come out as well, I'll take out full classes and teachers. And again, as soon as you start educating them, they're like, oh, like, for example, a really simple one with the beaver is like, look, this is a rodent. If you had mice, first of all, I'll ask a class, how many of you have trapped a mouse? And boom, hands go up. And I'm like, okay, so you're a trapper. I said, but what did you do with that mouse? And they're, well, we threw it away. And I'm like, okay, so you just wasted what you trapped. That's where we differ. So I'm going to trap a really big rodent, but I'm going to utilize everything. And so you start just throwing terms like that, and you compare a beaver to a mouse or a rat in their house, and they're like, we need to get rid of it because it's destroying our house. And like, exactly, right? So you understand and you agree with that. You put it into terms that they can, that they can relate to, and then they sort of see the bigger picture. Some don't, and that's fine. Yeah. But the other thing is, once they actually experience hands-on, that also changes their attitude. When I take a beaver into the classroom and the kids skin it out, it just changes everything. And then you start talking about, yeah, we'll eat the meat. We'll use the castor glands. We'll use the fur. And then anything that doesn't get used here is going back out to the trap line, whether I use it for bait or whether I just, throw it in the bush for the critters to eat. Like, it doesn't go to the garbage dump and so it really opens up people's eyes. And I have not had any negative, like, personal attacks, like in public, like in the schools or people that come out. Some people are like, they still don't like it, but they understand it. Yeah. Now YouTube is a whole different, because you get all sorts of people. But
also, you're in a far north place, and it seems like the further north you go, there's
absolutely
more fur understanding.
Well, if I went down to Vancouver and got into the big city, you wouldn't be able to pull this off, in a school system down there. And it's sad, but as soon as you throw in the indigenous content or the indigenous side of it, the culture side of it, people tend to be a little more accepting of it,
Mm-hmm.
which that's great. But it's like, I'm not indigenous, and I don't pretend to be, and I don't, portray anything to, suggest that I am. But
Right.
the thing I love about trapping is it's that, whether you view it from an indigenous lens or whether you view it from a European lens, that Canada was built on trapping, and you had Europeans and indigenous cultures working together, and that's what I'm doing. I'm still doing that exact same thing.
Yeah.
I'm learning from the elders, I'm learning from the
Yeah.
community, but I'm also teaching some people that are, indigenous students and whatnot that haven't been exposed to it.
Right.
There's a big gap. A lot of the kids, when I ask them about trapping, they'll tell me their grandparents did it. Even the parents, when I talk to the parents, are like, oh, my grandma or my grandpa, I did a little bit when I was like 7 or 8 years old, but it
Right.
skipped a generation, and we're
Yeah.
kind of we're catching back up to introducing these kids, and now they're telling me stories about their grandparents trapping, and yeah, so it's
Yeah. And
yeah.
I feel like another thing that a lot of people don't understand is that we have regulations now. We have wildlife biologists studying the fur bearers. Like, a lot of people think that, oh, you're just going to trap them all and they're going to be gone or they're going to be extinct, and that's completely not the case.
Well,
We're taking a surplus stock, and our season. Even beaver are like they're going nuts here in the Hudson Valley. Like, nuisance trappers can work full time, and we still can't control all the beaver.
yeah.
And we have a season, and it's going to end, and then those beavers are going to repopulate.
Yeah,
Uh,
and another pair will come in and take over. Like, I see it all the time where, like, I'm trapping right along the edge of roads. You know, Again, I've got so much water. I could trap thousands of beavers if I wanted to, if I really wanted to get out there. But I just trap along the main Forest Service roads, and it's actually the forestry company wants me to trap these beavers because
sure.
they're
Yeah.
flooding it. They're plugging up the dams. They bring in. I've seen it half a dozen times. They bring in excavators, rip out the dam, and 2 months later, it's plugged right back up.
Yeah.
There's all the way out to my trap line along the highway. Highways hires excavators all the time to clean out these culverts, and they're spending thousands and thousands of dollars to on these big pieces of equipment. And the worst part is sometimes this equipment is going into the bush, destroying a bunch of ground, as to get access to some of these dams they're trying to rip out, where we go in there, open up a little channel, set a trap, and it's like you don't even know we were there. But then the beavers they'll come back. I've had ponds that have gone dormant for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they're right active again. So we're not going to get rid of them.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And putting them to use. And the other thing, a lot of people that don't really know about trapping, they think that we're still using big, huge traps with teeth on them that are cutting into the animals, and
Yeah.
that's just not the case. That we use best management practices, and we have traps that hold animals, and actually a lot of animals are relocated using foothold traps. I noticed, actually, you're probably not using footholds, right? Everything's a lethal set, either a snare or a conibear.
Yeah, and I do that because I don't know if I'm going, like, I think it's 48 hours are our regulations for footholds,
Yeah.
and then you obviously would have to dispatch it 1-4. So when I first started, people thought I was a bit crazy, but I wasn't allowed to carry a firearm, like a rifle or anything, to dispatch. I didn't really ask, and so I didn't want to push it. I was just like, they're letting me take kids out trapping. Let's just
I'll figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, and so that was one reason, but the main reason was I knew I couldn't hit the deadline, and there would be times where, because I can leave traps for 2 weeks if I want to, if it's a lethal trap.
Mhm.
And so that was one reason. And then the other reason was I wasn't carrying a 22 or something to dispatch, and which I'm now allowed to.
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of, once I started working with Tackling Nation part-time, uh, and I was doing that up, like we were taking the kids hunting. And so when I went back to the district, I'm like, look, if I'm doing it with them, can I do it with you? And I pushed the envelope a little bit, and they finally like, yeah, it's all legal. Like you're
Yeah.
certified and whatnot. So now I can carry but I still wouldn't do a foothold. That's the other part of, the kids. I don't know if they need to see that. Um,
Mhm.
some kids would be fine with it, but it's, yeah, I just prefer to walk
Yeah.
up to the animal that's been dispatched. So,
Right. Yep. Did you ever actually get one though, like an otter or a beaver caught by the tail or something like that, and they're still alive when you get there?
um, I caught a beaver one, might have been this spring, and I didn't have any kids with me. Actually, it was on a weekend that, yeah, it was a
Mhm.
bad catch that
Yeah.
I had to dispatch. But yeah, the one of the first times I caught a wolf, it wasn't, and
Oh.
so I actually had to re-snare it. And so that was, I had two grade 8 boys with me, so
Mm.
that was the first time I've ever had to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a learning curve for me. I've got this wolf. It was a good catch, but
Right.
it just stopped fighting. It wouldn't. It
Mm.
was chewing. It was chewing. It was going to chew
Right.
out of the snare. So I had heard stories about how to deal with it. So I just rigged up another snare on a snare pole and
Right.
went in there and gave
Yeah.
one of the grade 8 boys my bear spray. And I'm like, just be
Yep.
ready to use this. And I
Yeah.
didn't tell my administration about it for a little while, but and clearly didn't video any of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, they're few and far between.
So are you targeting wolves every season out there? You have spots where you're
Yeah, this year I think I only had like 3 or 4 snares out, like not very many. Um,
Yeah, I saw
again,
you putting bait station at the moose
yeah,
ribs out there.
yeah. So yeah, not normally I do. I'll have quite a few stations out, but again, just
Oh,
and
you
my
froze up.
timeline, it was just a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Got you.
back
And
there. Yeah. So no, I pardon me.
do you guys have bobcats up that far north or no?
No,
No.
no. So we have lynx, we have bobcats. I know 3 hours south of us for sure.
Mhm.
I maybe an hour and a half. So there's a town called Quesnel's, an hour and a bit south of us. They might have them, but 3 hours south in that region, they definitely have them.
Yeah.
I've heard people say they've seen them up here, but I've not heard of any trappers getting them up here. So we're
Yeah.
kind of right on that borderline where, yeah,
They don't
they,
survive as well that
I
far
guess,
north.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're pretty tiny when you think of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. They don't have those nice big feet like the lynx do to
yeah,
walk on the snow and
right,
so forth. But they're pretty tough actually. From what I've heard, the lynx have a hard time dealing with the bobcat where they mix, right where
right,
they're starting to mix. The bobcat are a little more aggressive than the lynx. Um, they tried to put lynx back into the Adirondacks here in New York, I think about 30 years ago. Um, and the reintroduction didn't take. They just dispersed and they
yeah,
weren't seen again. How you doing, the Cam Cowboy Outdoors?
yeah.
Thanks.
That's Camel Cowboy. So he's
Camo
in.
Cowboy.
Yeah, we follow each other as well. He's in Alberta, I believe is correct. Yeah, so he runs a ranch there and does he does a lot of wolf and coyote trapping as well as a lot of beaver trapping. So and
That's awesome.
fishery. I think he's been getting some fisher, and they can keep them over there.
Yeah, yeah. Here in New York, we can too. So that's pretty cool. But even as close as Pennsylvania, how many can I don't know. Every state is different here. So different than you guys, we're surrounded by our states and borders, and it's all a little smaller. So some places you can only get one bobcat. I know Indiana just, I think, finally got a bobcat season, and you can get one. Whereas here in New York, we have no bag limit here in the Hudson Valley. Usually, we're the second highest bobcat take in New York State. And then my friend Greg Tierney traps out in central and western New York, and they don't have a bobcat season at all there, because they're just waiting for them to come back and do better. So, but I like all that. I like that we're paying attention, to
Yeah.
the animals and how well they're doing, and you know, we can, like you said, like trappers always say, you trap what you have, and
Well, that's the one thing about in Canada here, and owning a trap line. I mean, the only person that'd be hurting is myself if I overtrap an area or overtrap a species, because that that's your money for the following year. So um, you're managing, you kind of, you're allowed to manage a certain area by yourself, I guess you could say, as to what I want to do for beaver trapping. I mean, I can totally trap out a pond if I want to, and knowing that I'm going to have to find somewhere else the following year. And same with my martin sets and whatnot. And the wolves are, I mean, they just come and go. Like, they have such a huge range that sometimes I won't see them or hear them for months, and then all of a sudden there's tracks everywhere, and then they're
wow,
gone again.
yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, and I've got zero residential. Like, the closest house is probably 50 kilometers away, 30 miles away from my trap line. So there's no, other than forestry, there's no industry or anything going on in my area. So it's remote.
Yeah, it looks like it when you're out there. I love it. Well, it's been so great to meet you. And we were throwing some messages back and forth, and I could tell you're a school teacher because I was getting those quick ones at the end of the day. But really good communication, and thank you for everybody for checking in and checking on coming to our live here. Um, I'm Trapper Dan from Trapper SNORR, sustainable, natural, organic, and renewable resource. Put out trapping content year round. I try to off season work, and uh, right into trapline adventures. I trap here in the Hudson Valley of New York, and have done some ride-alongs in Wyoming. I went last year, and then I actually try to ride along with other trappers here in New York sometimes too. We do first education, and get out to conventions and try to get to fur sales and just about everything trapping. And Reid, it's been, I feel like asking you if I could be your assistant teacher some season. Come out and you need an assistant.
Yeah, it's a sweet gig for sure. And now that I'm with Tackla Nation, I've actually started another YouTube channel. I don't think we mentioned it here, but braided copper
Yeah,
is
we're
a
live on
channel.
Braided Copper right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that channel is specific to Tackla First Nations and everything I do with the kids. So a lot of the content is also on my channel. I'll make different videos for that channel, but use some of the same clips and whatnot. But where my channel's a little bit of everything, mostly trapping,
Right.
but a lot of other stuff as well. So yeah, that's another one to check out.
Yeah, awesome. If you came here because you were subscribing to Trapper Snore, where we're live, please subscribe to Reid's channels. And likewise, if you know Reid and you'd like to check me out, I already see that I got a couple subscribers just from this YouTube live, and that's
Yeah,
awesome,
good.
guys. The
Yeah.
the way that works is obviously you probably know, but it tells the YouTube algorithm that this is good stuff to put out there, and the more you get subscribers, the more your videos get exposed to more people, And
And I've done quite a few videos where I've given plugs, over the years to small channels, especially ones that, they're under 1,000 subscribers. And I every time I find one, I subscribe to it, because a good message is, like you say, the more support that we give each other, it's showing that this is content that people want to see. Certain people want to see, obviously, and that's good. I mean, we're just helping each other out.
yeah, awesome. Well, I gotta go check on where the storm is and
Yeah,
what's going to happen with us tomorrow. I closed everything down, but gotta just make sure we're totally ready. And thanks for everybody for hanging out with us. Maybe we can do this again in the future. If you ever come to the East Coast, Reid, make sure you send me a message, because I'd love to host you around here, or if you do a family trip or something.
absolutely.
And yeah, I'll be hopefully retiring in a few years too, and I'm gonna take my camper out your way. So
Yeah.
maybe looking you up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can show you some pretty fun country.
Well, be safe with the kids, and good luck with the rest of your season. And everyone else who's watching, we wish you the best with your trap lines if you're a trapper. And also be safe in this storm if you're in it, where I guess 280 million of us are. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah, and I just want to I recognize lots of names on the chat there that have subscribed and left comments on my channel, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, we love you guys, and thanks, Chasing Tails. We got a lot of nice comments, and it is getting late here at our time, and we appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Whereas you could be off doing something else exciting, you're right here listening to us crazy trappers. All right, bye everybody. Hang out, Reid. We gotta check out in the studio.
Sounds good.